Hey, my friends, this is the art of prepping. So young people out there, here are 10 things that you would really want to know before you get much older. And these are some things that I wish I knew. I did know a few of these, though, when I was young, but I didn't know all of them. At least I never really internalized the information. I may have heard about some of these, but I just really never took it serious. And I'm here to tell you, just really take these to heart, and you're going to have a better quality of life. It's pretty much guaranteed. And a lot of this is common sense, but there's a lot of people who just don't know about these things, or they just kind of push them off to the side. And I'm here to tell you these things are important. You might want to pay attention. So the first is debt. You don't want to enslave yourself at an early age by getting yourself into debt. Now, you may say, well, how am I going to go to school? How am I going to buy a car? How am I going to buy a house? And you're going to say, well, I have to have some debt because I can't afford it. But debt enslaves you, and it can follow you for decades, if not your entire life. And why would you want to live like that? So you may say, well, I need a new car. Well, do you really, though? Do you really? You don't. You can get a used car and just make do of whatever you can afford. People say, well, I got to get an education. Get educated. Do you really? And I'm not against education, but be selective. If you're going to go and get a major in something goofy, let's be serious. Why be in debt from that? And I'm here to say, even if you do find something that's more serious and that you want to have a career and you have to go to school to get that career, work your way through and be disciplined. I took off a year in between undergraduate and graduate degree because I wanted to save more money because I was debt free at that point. And I was like, I don't want to go in debt just because I want to go to grad school. Even though the statistics show that once you drop out of the school system, even if you're in between degrees, the statistics show that you probably won't go back. But if you're disciplined, you will. I know plenty of people who were disciplined and they went back after a short break. Because sometimes you just need to rebuild your resources so you can pay as you go. So don't be tempted just because they offer you thousands of dollars in loans or grants that you have to pay back. Don't be tempted to take it. Don't do it because it can follow you for a long time. I know people right now that I went to school with that have tens of thousands of dollars in debt, and it's been a while since they've been in school. It's several decades. So don't be tempted to take the easy money up front because you're going to pay for it long term and you're going to pay dearly and you're going to wish you never did some of that stuff. You never wish that you accrued that stuff. And so you may also ask, well, what about the house? There's no one can afford a house. You have to get a loan. Really? You can incrementally just buy what you can afford. You may have to rent for a while. You may have to downsize your lifestyle so you can save aggressively. And it may take you 5 or 10 years of doing that before you can have enough money just to go and pay a house off or buy it, straight out and not have to get a loan. But people do this. This does happen. You don't hear a lot about it, but there are people who are completely against debt and they don't ever get loans on anything. But you just have to be disciplined. Otherwise, you're going to have to pay the price. And you're going to pay a lot more for everything because you have to pay interest. Why would you want to pay more for things unless you had to? So the next thing that young people really need to know is that education opens up doors. Now, I'm not saying to go out and just get any degree because you don't want to waste your time. Find something that's really legitimate, something that's really practical, that you're going to really want to use, something that you're going to want to possibly have a career with. Of course, when you're young, you don't really know exactly what you want. And I'm here to tell you that I didn't know either. I just kind of did my best guess, I tried my very best to just try to narrow it down. But statistics, once again, show something that's very different, that the average person, after 5 years out of college, switches careers completely in a totally different field. And it's about 80% of people, within the first 5 years, they leave their career or their particular job that they majored in. It's just the truth. It's crazy. That shows you. That shows you right there that people don't know what they really want to do. And that's okay. It's just how it is. But getting a good education and something that's really concrete is very important. Even if you change down the road and do something totally different, you have some substantial background into something. And it can open doors in ways that you may not know until many decades later. It's pretty interesting how that works. A lot of doors can open. And so if you have just like a high school diploma versus someone that may have a bachelor's degree, that's going to be a big difference in the eyes of a lot of employers, not employees. Okay. It's a beautiful day today. I'm a little distracted by all the animals walking around. We have some deer in the area, so I'm just watching them right now. But yeah, employers will just prefer you if you have more education, because typically it's a sign that you have more discipline and you have more to offer. Doesn't really mean it's the truth. There could be people with a high school diploma that are more intelligent than people that went to college. That's been shown. But in the eyes of the employer, it's just a lot easier to say, well, you have more on paper, and I'm going to hire you over someone else that has less on paper. Number 3, things change over time. Nothing stays the same. And that includes you. You will not always have this much energy. When you get older, things start to slow down a little bit. It doesn't have to slow down a lot. It just slows down a little bit. And you won't want to run around as much, at least most of us. There are some people, then they get older, they want to go and run around more. But for the most part, people don't want to go and travel as much, or they don't want extravagant things, or, well, once again, most people. There are definitely some people who do want more extravagant things. But when you get older, you understand that simplicity really, really is a good thing. That you invite that. You want peace in your life. And that if you start at a young age, inviting peace into your life and building peaceful relationships, you're just going to have a better life overall. Number 4, save for retirement early and let the miracle of compounding do its thing. It's an amazing thing when you have, it could be mutual funds, bonds, whatever, and over time, it grows and grows and grows through compounding. And I find it really interesting. And there's been a lot of scientists that have commented on the whole process of compounding. And if you're young, if you can even start when you're a teenager, wow, you can get such a head start on most people, and it's just amazing. You won't have to actually put in that much compared to other people who start late and they might be middle-aged and they're just starting to save for retirement. You don't want to be in your 40s and 50s starting to save for retirement. You're going to be so behind. You probably won't even be able to catch up, possibly. So do things the smart way. And the smart way is to start early, and you won't have the burden. You won't have to contribute very much at all per year to have a good retirement. Number 5, having kids is easier earlier in life than later. And this should be pretty common sense, but you see a lot of people, they want to have a career when they get out of college, and they want to have a career for 10, 15 years even before they even want to consider having kids. And then they start to notice, when they do have kids, if they're still able to have kids or they adopt kids, that, oh man, I'm kind of used to a different lifestyle, or I don't have as much energy as when I was younger, and this may not have been a very good idea. Now, this is not to say that some people can't handle it, because there are people who do this. It's not the worst thing. Having kids is a really good thing. It's a blessing, really. But let's just be honest, though. There's a reason, though, why we have certain drives when we're younger, and it's probably because we're in the peak condition to handle more stress. So if you're a young person and you're in a relationship and you just got married, and you definitely, both of you guys want to have kids, go ahead and start early. Maybe not like right now, but maybe within the near future if you're young, and get that head start, or at least do it when it's more appropriate, because it's going to be that much easier. And stress can really destroy relationships. So when you can do things, when you can deal with stress, it's always better. Number 6, learn a second language when you're young, because once again, it's easier than when you get older. It's not that we can't learn when we're older. It's just a lot easier when we're younger. And for some people, maybe it's a third or fourth language, but learn as much as you can and get into good habits. Have good habits when you're young, because it can follow your whole life and give you good results, good benefits from that. Number 7, set goals and understand why they are important. Don't just make up things and say, well, I want to just do these things because I just say so, or I just put it on paper. Understand why you'd want to do those things. And if you try to dig a little bit and you find out that you really don't want to do this because you really don't have any reason to do it, then you have to come to the conclusion that you need to make other goals, meaningful goals. And I do see people from time to time, they have goals, but they don't really mean much to them. And it's just kind of something to do. Something to do. And that kind of segues into the next topic here. And it's perfect segue, really. And it's basically if you're always going to be busy, you're going to really start to have a poor quality of life long term. If you don't really have a moment or even a day or two from time to time just to kind of enjoy what's around you and what you've been working so hard to get or to accomplish, then life doesn't really have the same meaning, does it? It's kind of like, what's the purpose? If all you're going to do is just be busy, or be a workaholic, or just, why? What's the purpose if you can't enjoy it? The next is bad habits. And they only get worse, right, over time. And they're harder to break over time. So if you have a bad habit now, cut it off as soon as possible. Don't reinforce it anymore. Switch it out for something that's much more positive. So let's just say, for example, you have a bad habit of, getting angry. And it is a habit, you can change that. You don't have to get angry. It's a choice for the most part. Well, you can substitute that with something else. At first you could just do something that's more kinesthetic, something that's more like visceral. You can do with your hands, maybe. It could be something as cliche as getting a stress ball. And when you start to feel anger come on, you start working that stress ball. Or you take a moment and you go for a walk. Or you call your best friend and you just talk it through. And you get to a point that when you don't reinforce the anger over time, it loses its power. It doesn't really surface. It just doesn't come around, and you become more able to be adaptive on how to respond in a different way. And for a lot of us, we do need to kind of start looking at how to act and think in a different way sometimes, because it can kind of manipulate and control us to some degree if we let it. So we have to be very mindful that the things that we think and the things we do over time become substantial in our lives. And lastly, I just want to talk about that life goes by very fast, very fast. So do the right things today and don't have regrets. You don't want to be on your deathbed and go, oh my gosh, I have all these regrets. I wish I did this. I wish I did that. You don't want to do all that. You want to be in the right place right now. You want to feel like you've done what you could do now. And just remember, just because you didn't do certain things doesn't mean you're off the hook. Sometimes inaction can be worse than doing the wrong thing physically, like action, the wrong action. So you have to be mindful. Inaction and action both matter. And there's times that it makes the right decision to not do something. But there's also times that it's wrong not to do something. Just like there's times that it's right to do something and it's wrong to do something. So be aware that there are consequences, and your conscience is one of those, and it can haunt you. So always try to do the right thing, even if there's no one around. Thanks for checking the video out. Catch you later.